Hello guys, we have a little problem. We've got a problem with our logs we created. So if I go to our log directory, you may notice that these logs will grow with time. So for example, here what's happening every time we start a container, our logs are appended to the end of the file. Why? Because what we do, we mount our files after containers started. Containers are stateless, so they hold the data within the files just for the life cycle of the container. But what we do, we mount these files into the container after container started, and we already got the content in our files. So what that means, we override what already is in the container, and then our services just append to the log files additional content. So this will be perfect opportunity to look at entry points. Entry point, as the name says, is the way of running certain scripts or certain services, executables, whatever you want at the start of the container. And two commands we are interested in is Entrypoint and cmd. There is a little difference in between these two. So Entrypoint specify the script or executable we want to run in conjunction with cmd. What happens is we're gonna have our entry point specified, and with command we can pass additional parameters. You're gonna see how that works very shortly. So what I want to do, I want to be able to clear all the log files when my containers are starting, because I don't want to store these logs forever. So we're gonna start with Nginx. So let's navigate to our Nginx directory in our Docker folder. So within here we're gonna create a new directory called Entrypoint. And in here we're gonna create a new bash script called Entrypoint .sh, and let's just change the shebang to bin bash. And before we continue, let's just quickly have a look how Nginx image is built. So if I go to Nginx Alpine on Docker Hub, and let's look at Docker file, you will see on the very end the service is started with the command. And this is sufficient because Nginx is already in the path, so all we have to do, we just have to start run the command to start our Nginx. Worth mentioning is that we turn off a daemon. So let's go back to PHP Storm. So what we're gonna do here, we're gonna, first of all, we want to make sure our Nginx is running. So we're gonna do exec Nginx as it was in the Docker file global, and we're gonna turn off the daemon. So let's do daemon off, and that's all we need to do in order to start our Nginx service. So let's save that and go back quickly to a Docker file. So now we've got our entry point created, but now what we need to do, we need to copy this file into container. So let's do copy entry point entrypoint.sh to, let's just do it to here, entrypoint.sh. We need to adjust permissions, so the file is executable chmod plus x entrypoint.sh, entrypoint.sh, and then on the very end we need to say entry point, and we need to point to our entry point script. So in this case we're gonna do that. This needs to be in double quotes. If you do single quotes, it won't work. So let's save that and try quickly recreate our Nginx. container, so let's do that and see what happens, and hopefully it's gonna work. So let's list our containers, Docker.ps, and Nginx is not running, so let's quickly check the logs. Unexpected end of parameter expecting in command line Nginx. Okay, so I know what it is. So as you seen in Docker file, there is a semicolon on the end, which I forget to place in my entry point. So just in here we need the semicolon. Let's save that and let's try again. And once it's started, let's check our containers. And looks like our Nginx is running. What you can see here, you can see our custom entry point we specified. Just to quickly confirm, let's check in the browser, and it's running. A new SSL certificate was created, but it doesn't matter. So it looks like our service is running. Okay, so now we can do in our entry point whatever we want. So we want to clear our log files, so we're gonna do that with command truncate -s0 and name of the file. This will remove any content from the file. So if I go to our Docker Compose and grab these two files and go back to my entry point, let me just quickly do that. So we want to clear this one, and let's copy that, and let's do that, and let's do access log as well, and let's try to run again. But before, let's just check if we got anything in our error logs so we can actually see if it's working. We've got some entries in here, and let's just add some dummy content in here. Okay, save that, and just to be sure, save that. Let's go back to our terminal, let's recreate our Nginx container, and let's see what happens. So Docker.ps, our Nginx is running. Let's go back, and as you can see now, our error logs and our access logs are deleted. So now what's gonna happen, we're gonna have our error logs stored just for the time of our development session, and this is exactly what I want. So now let's do exactly the same for MySQL. So first of all, let's see how MySQL image is handling entry points. So we're gonna look for MySQL server Docker. We're gonna find the Docker file, and we see exactly what is happening there. So we are on this one. So the Docker file, as you can see, we've got Docker entry point, then is another script, is a health check, then we've got our entry point specified, then the health check is running, exposing ports, and additional command passed to entry point. So we're gonna copy this, and let's go back to PHP Storm. In our MySQL directory, let's create a new directory called Entrypoint. Let's create a new file. It's gonna be a bash script. We're gonna call it entrypoint.sh. Actually not. What we can do instead, because there are already entry points in MySQL image, so what we can do instead, we can grab these files. So let's grab entry point, let's grab row, because we want all these commands from entry point default image to be run. So let's go back to our terminal, let's do cd docker and MySQL, and let's let's grab this file wget, and also we need a health check. So let's grab health check as well. And let's go back in here, do wget on that URL, and we should have these files. Great, let's quickly go back to the browser and inspect Dockerfile again. So we are interested in all of that, so let's grab this. Let's go back to our MySQL, and those are in the wrong place, so I'm just gonna move them in there. Okay, so in our Docker file, what we want to do, we want to copy entry points and Entrypoint and health check, and then we don't need to expose the port because this is going to be exposed from the default image. So we just need to adjust the paths. So Entrypoint and health check, so we're going to do Entrypoint, and on the health check we're going to do exactly the same, Entrypoint health check. And additional thing we need to do, we're gonna run a command to adjust permissions. So let's do chmod +x on entrypoint.sh, and another one for health check. Great. And let's go back quickly to our terminal and see if our MySQL service is actually starting. So let's do that, MySQL, and we got permission denied on health check. Let's have a look why. And health check as okay, because I didn't chmod it. So let's do that, I just forgot. Save that and let's go back. Let's try to recreate again. And do docker ps. And as you can see, our MySQL is running with our custom entry point. So this is good. So now what we can do, we can clear our log file by editing entry point. So in the very beginning, before we start doing anything with MySQL, we can just clear the log file, and we can do exactly the same thing as we did in Nginx. So I'm just gonna grab this, Control C, entry point, and whoops, copy that, paste, and we want to grab our log file from MySQL, which is located here. So let's quickly do that. Great, let's just quickly check if we got any logs in our MySQL, and as you can see there is quite a bit. That's what I'm talking about. They're gonna grow over time massively. So now we've got that out of the way, let's quickly try to restart our MySQL and see what happens, and hopefully we're gonna have a clear log file. So let's go back, and as you can see it did work. So we cleared the log just before MySQL service started, and then obviously we've got our logs related to the start of the service, and this is what we want. So now let's quickly sort PHP logs. So we're going to do exactly the same thing. Let's quickly jump into the browser and find PHP image we are using. So it's going to be PHP fpm docker, and let me just quickly see which one we are actually using. PHP Docker file, we are using 7.2.6 Alpine, so Alpine and 7.2.6 FPM Alpine, here we go. And let's have a look what is happening in this file. So we expose the port, we've got command, PHP FPM, and we've got our entry point here. So obviously there is already existing entry point to start a PHP service. So let's go back and let's just grab this entry point. So I'm gonna grab row and let's go back to terminal. So cd docker cd php mkdir entry point and cd to entry point, and we are there. So now we can do wget on that entry point file. We should have it there. So let's quickly go back to our PHP storm and we should have our file in here, and this one doesn't have sh extension, that's not a problem. So let's quickly go back to our Docker file and let's see again what is happening in the original Docker file. So let's go back. So we need to run this command. Okay, let's do that and let's see again what they do with Entrypoint. Okay, so that's all they do. So let me grab this and within here we're gonna specify this entry point. So now what we're gonna do, again we're gonna have to copy this file. So let's copy it from Entrypoint Docker Entrypoint. What is in it? This is just -h. Okay, so what we can do, we can copy this to entry point .sh. Let's adjust permissions. Run entry point sh. So let's do chmod +x on that file. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna run it, and that should be sufficient to start our service with our custom entry points. So let's quickly go back to a terminal and try to recreate our PHP container. One more. So PHP and let's see if it's running, and looks like it's running. Just to be sure, on the safe side, it's working. Okay, so now let's go and edit this entry point. So again, before anything happens related to PHP, let's quickly just clear the log file. So let's do that, and our entry point here. Let's run this command, and the log file we are interested in for PHP is here. So let's grab that and go back here. Let's do this. Let's just quickly check if we got anything in our logs, and we do. So let's go and recreate our PHP container and see if our logs are cleared, and if everything went fine, it should be all clear any days. So finally, let's have a look at Redis. Let me just quickly clean a little bit here and close all these directories we don't need. So here we go. So let's go back to the browser and see what Redis image is doing. So docker Redis library Redis, and we're running on this version. So let's have a look, and so I can see they just copy Entrypoint script, add it to the path so they can run it and run the command. So let's grab this and let's create our custom entry point. So in our Redis, in our Docker file on the very end, we're gonna just paste that. We don't need to expose the port as this is gonna be done. That is okay. I mean, yeah, so let's go back and grab this entry point file. So let's do that. Row, copy, go back to terminal, cd docker cd redis and mk dir entry point cd to it, entry point, and wget on that file, and let's go back to our PHP storm. So we've got entry point here, so we're gonna copy from entry point and we're gonna copy that file to user local bin, and we're gonna add this to the path. Let's do something different. Entry point .sh, and then let's adjust permissions. So run chmod plus x on that file, and we're gonna run that file. So now we're just gonna do that, and let's quickly test if it's gonna work. So and let's recreate our Redis container. And docker ps, and looks like Alpine Redis is running with our custom entry point. Just to be sure, let's try to SSH into it. So my project dash Redis and Redis CLI ping, and it's work. Okay, great. So now last bit we need to do, we need to add additional command to the entry point. So in here, in this file, just before I'm gonna do as I did before, entry point, let me grab this, and in here, in our Redis, we can run that first, and the file we want to clear is this one. So here, very good, and let's try to recreate our Redis container and check our log files. As you remember, there was a lot of crap in this file, so now it's empty, is it? Okay, and let's just double check if it's actually running on Redis. Yep. So let's quickly sh and do Redis CLI and see if we're actually receiving logs, and ping exit. So I don't see any logs now, and that is not working. Okay, let's quickly check Docker file. Okay, Right, it's not working because we didn't pass configuration file. So as you can see, we've got command here, but then we run this command instead. So what we need to do, we need to grab this and replace this command here, so we actually pass configuration file. As you remember, in our configuration file we set login to file. So let's do that, and let's go back to terminal and let's try to run it again. So let's recreate our container, and hopefully now we will be able to receive logs. So yeah, it's all working fine now. So if I add some additional content normally created by our Redis server, and I'm gonna try to recreate container to see if our logs are cleared, and they should be cleared. So let's go back